like a guest. Good character is what our prophet came to perfect. By the time you learn to love, you'll have to learn to lose.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. A very warm and heartfelt welcome to all our esteemed listeners and viewers tuning into Radio Al-Ansar on 90.4 FM in Durban, 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. And we welcome those viewers watching us live on Facebook and YouTube from around the country and from around the world. The program you are listening to is called Back to the Basics in the company of Maulana Muhammad Saleh Jusub Arbi. The program takes place every Tuesdays between 1:30 and 2 p.m. In this program, we learn and we explore the various basic teachings of Islam historically, and we use this as a golden opportunity to reconnect with the basic principles and the basic usul and the basic elements of our religion, in hope that we are inspired and our hearts are drawn closer to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it inspires us to be better Muslims and to be better human beings. Today we discuss a story, and we will inshallah ta'ala take some inspiration and motivation from a very interesting story that has been mentioned in the glorious Quran. It's the story of the people of the ditch, Ashabul Ukhdud. Ashabul Ukhdud, which refers to the people of the ditch. And this story is mentioned in Suratul Buruj. Suratul Buruj has the story of Ashabul Ukhdud. In numerous places in the Quran, Allah speaks about incidents about people who lived in ancient times. And one such people or one such group of people that lived anciently are the people of the ditch. They are referred to in the following ayat of Suratul Buruj, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Cursed were the people of the ditch. Fire supplied abundantly with fuel when they sat by it, and they witnessed what they were doing against the believers, burning them." So the Quran speaks about a fire and this ditch that was dug of fire, and people were then thrown into this fire. So the story goes as follows. And the story is mentioned in several hadith, authentic hadith, with slightly differing variations and versions. But the crux of the story is as follows. The Prophet ﷺ told the story to the Sahaba, and he said to them, "Amongst the people before you, there was a king, and he had a magician. When the magician became old, he said to the king, that now I have become old and I am soon to die, so I need someone that I can teach my magic to. I need somebody that can come to me and I can transfer this skill in magic to this person." So basically the magician is saying to the king that now, because of my old age, you need to allocate to me a youngster or a young boy, and that boy can train under me, so that if something happens to me, you know that that boy is well trained and he can then occupy this position of being the magician. So the king sent him a boy. The king found a boy, and the king then allocated this boy to the magician and said that, "Look, this is the boy. He will come to you daily and you teach him magic. You teach him sorcery." Whenever the boy used to come to the magician, on the way to the magician, the boy used to meet a monk on the way. So every day there was a set time that he had, basically like an appointment. Every day at that appointed time, he needed to come and learn magic from the magician of the king. But on the way to the magician, he used to meet a monk, and then he became interested. He became attracted to the monk. So what used to happen was, on the way to the magician, when he used to meet the monk on the way, he used to sit in the company of that monk, and he used to listen to his talks. He used to admire him. The monk had some religious people that used to sit around him, and he used to give talks, he used to give advice, and he used to speak on various aspects. And the boy that was scheduled and that was supposed to be on his way to the magician, he used to sit and listen to what the monk had to say. So when he used to end up going to the magician, he used to end up being late. When he went to the magician, he passed by the monk, he sat there with him, and on visiting the magician used to say that, "You late." And then the magician started punishing him for being late. Then what the boy started doing is he started mentioning this to the monk. Whenever he used to then sit with the monk on the way, he used to tell the monk, "Look, I'm sitting in your company. I like your talks. I have a lot of admiration for you. I am inclined to the wisdom that you impart with us. But whenever I come and sit with you, due to sitting with you, I end up being late to go to the magician. I'm actually supposed to be learning magic from the magician, but I end up sitting with you, I end up going late, and the magician punishes me for being late." So the monk said to the boy, "Whenever you go to the magician and he punishes you, then tell him that you got delayed by your family. Tell him that my people kept me busy, and whenever you are afraid of your people, and whenever you go home and your family wants to punish you for being late, then tell them that you got delayed by the magician. So whenever you go to the magician, don't tell him that the monk kept you, or don't tell him that you delayed because you sat with me. Tell him that you got delayed because you were busy with your family, and when you go home late and your family starts making a fuss about you being late, say that the magician kept you for extra time." So the boy carried on like this for a period of time. Every day at the allocated time, he used to go to the magician to learn magic. But on the way to the magician, he used to sit with this monk, this supposedly pious person, and he used to listen to his talks. And that used to increase him in knowledge, in wisdom, in faith. And then he used to go to the magician and he used to say, "No, my family delayed me." And he used to come back to his family and say the magician delayed him. And this carried on for some time. This carried on for a period. And then there came a time where one day he was walking on the way to the magician. He was walking on the streets, and there was this huge creature, like a monster, this huge, unusual, unidentified animal, sort of a creature. And this animal, this unusual creature, came and stood on the pathway, on the road, and it blocked the road. It blocked the pathway. This unusual, call it a monster, came and stood on the pathway, blocking the road and making it difficult for anybody to pass by. At that time, when the boy saw this animal, the boy in his mind said, "This is a perfect opportunity for me to see, for me to observe and experiment who is more powerful between the monk and the magician. Is the magician that I go to learn magic from every day, is he more powerful? Or the monk that I sit with on the way to the magician, is he more powerful?" So he says, "Today I will know whether the sorcerer is better or the monk is better." So he took a stone in his hand, and he aimed it at that creature. He aimed it at that animal, and he said, O Allah, if the deeds and actions of the monk are more liked by you better than those of the magician, then kill this creature so that people can cross by the road. And he threw the stone towards the creature. In his mind, he is now experimenting. So basically, option one, he says, I'm going to take a stone and I'm going to throw it at this creature, taking Allah's name and supplicating to Allah and making dua to say, oh Allah, if the actions and the deeds of the monk is dearer to you than the actions and the deeds of the magician, then cause this creature to die so that people can carry on with their daily routine. He hit it with the stone, making this dua, and when he hit the creature with the stone, making this dua to Allah, the creature died. The animal was killed. And the people passed the road. The boy came to the monk and informed him about it. The boy then came to the monk and said, do you know what happened? He says, I was walking on the street and there was this animal, this creature that came and blocked everyone's path. And I wanted to test which one is dearer to Allah and who has more power granted by Allah, the monk or the magician. And I took a stone and I said, oh Allah, if you are pleased with the actions and the deeds of the monk, then allow this animal to die. And the animal died. So the boy came and he tells the monk, he informs the monk about it. The monk said to him, oh my son, today you are better than I. You have achieved what I see, and you will be put to trial. And in case you are put to trial, do not inform them about me. The monk says to the boy, today you are better than me. You have achieved a higher maqam than me. You threw a stone at the creature, asking Allah if he's pleased with my actions, and Allah made the animal die. So that is now an indication of your maqam in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the monk said to him, now that I can see where you are heading, in which direction, he says, definitely you are going to be placed in trials and tribulations, and you are going to be tested. And when you are tested and when you are put to trial, do not take my name. Do not mention anything about me. And then, lo and behold, after this incident of him throwing the stone at the animal and killing the creature, after this, the boy then started treating people suffering from blindness, leprosy, and other diseases. People who were blind used to come to the boy, and the boy used to pray on them, he used to pray for them, and he used to treat them, and they used to be cured. People who had leprosy, people who had skin diseases, people who had different ailments, they used to come to the boy used to pray for them, and they used to be cured. A blind person that used to work for the king, heard about this boy, that, there's this youngster and people who are blind and people who have leprosy and different diseases, they go to this boy and the boy prays for them and they are cured. So this blind person working for the king came and he brought a number of gifts for the boy, and he placed all the gifts in front of the boy, and he says, these gifts are for you on condition that you cure me, you restore my eyesight, cure me from blindness, let me see again, and if you are able to cure my blindness and if my vision is restored, then all of these gifts that I have brought are for you. Now here's the message. The boy said, I do not cure anybody. It is Allah who cures people. I do not cure anybody. It is Allah alone who cures people. Shifa is from Allah. Shifa is from Allah. A lesson here, a message here. A person is afflicted with a sickness, a person is afflicted with a challenge. Immediately primarily, initially, the first thing he should do is turn to Allah. Allah is most deserving of you turning to him in your problem. Whether it's sickness, whether it's a challenge, whether it's financial, whether it's marital, whatever you are facing, the first one for you to turn towards is Allah. This blind person working for the king comes and says to the boy, all these gifts are for you. Restore my eyesight, cure my blindness. The young boy says, I do not cure anybody. The blind people that come here, the people with leprosy that come here, the people with diseases and ailments that come here, and they are cured. They are cured. I make dua for them. They are cured. Allah is the one curing them. Allah is the one who cures them. So if you believe in Allah and invoke Allah, he will cure you. He then believed in Allah. He brought Iman. This blind person brought Iman, strengthened his Iman, and Allah cured him. His eyesight was restored. The blind person, obviously now that was able to see, he came to the king and sat at the palace where he used to sit before. The king asked him, the king looked at him and said, he can see now. This person of mine, this minister of mine was blind. Now he can see. He's able to see. His vision has been restored. So the king asked him, who has restored your eyesight? The king asked him, who has given you back your sight? The minister says, my Lord Allah. The king said, do you have any other Lord besides me? The minister said, my Lord and your Lord is Allah. So from this we understand that the king had claimed divinity. He had claimed to be God. And now this blind person comes back, able to see. The king asks him, who has restored your eyesight? He says, my Allah, my Lord. So the king says, do you have any other Lord than me? I am your Lord. Is there this other Lord that you are speaking about? So the minister says, my Lord and your Lord is Allah. My Lord is also Allah. Your Lord is also Allah. My Rabb is also Allah. Your Rabb is also Allah. The king got furious with his response. The king got hold of him and kept on tormenting him until he informed about the boy. The king got hold of this minister and started tormenting him and punishing him, telling him to leave this belief that you have in God. And he was punished to such an extent that the minister then spilt the beans and he informed the king about the boy. The king said, bring the boy and come. The boy was brought to the king. The king says, oh boy, has your knowledge. Now the king, when the king saw the boy, the king recognized him. The king recognized him. The king says, hey, hold on. Isn't this the boy that I sent to the magician to learn magic? Not knowing that in the time that the king was under the impression that he's learning magic, the boy was sitting with this monk. He didn't know all of that. And now when this happens, the king recognizes the boy and says, hey, this is the same boy that I used to send to the magician to learn magic. So the king says, has your magic reached such an extent that you can cure people that are born blind, lepers, and patients with different diseases, and you can do such and you can do such? The boy replied to the king, I do not cure anybody. It is only Allah who cures. Then the king got hold of him and kept on punishing the boy, tormenting him, and kept on hitting him and punishing him to such an extent that the boy then informed the king about the monk. The king says, bring the monk. So are you understanding? First, the minister that was blind and that was cured, his eyesight was restored. That minister then informed about the boy. The boy was punished. Now the boy speaks about the monk. The monk was brought, and then it was said to the monk, give up your religion, forsake your religion. The monk refused. The monk refused to give up his deen. The monk refused, the man refused to turn away from his deen. The king ordered a saw, and it was put in the middle of his scalp, a saw, a bandsaw. And this saw was put in the middle of the monk's scalp. And the king gave him the last ultimatum: leave your religion or you're going to be killed. He didn't leave his religion. They cut his head open in half with a saw till he fell, cut in 2 pieces. That minister that was blind and now could see, he was brought, and it was said to him, give up your religion. The minister refused. He said, never. I will embrace death, but I will never give up my religion. He refused to turn apostate. So the saw was put in the middle of his scalp, and his scalp was also cut in half till he fell, cut in 2 pieces. The boy was then brought, and it was said to him, give up your religion. The boy refused to turn apostate. So the king ordered some of his ministers to take the boy to such and such mountain. And then the king ordered for this boy to be taken to a high mountain, a mountain peak. And the king said, ascend up the mountain with him until you reach its top, and then give him the ultimatum. If he is willing to leave his religion, then fine. If he refuses to leave his religion, then throw him down from the peak of the mountain. They took the boy, they ascended up the mountain, and the boy said, oh Allah, save me from them by anything that you wish, in any way you want to. Oh Allah, I ask you, you save me from them. The mountain started trembling. There was like an earthquake. The mountain shook, and all of them fell off the mountain. The boy came walking to the king. The king asked him, what did your companions do? The boy said, Allah saved me from them. The king then ordered some of his courtiers to take the boy on a boat in the middle of the sea. Then if he turns apostate, if he leaves his religion, fine. If he doesn't, drown him, toss him into the sea. They took him to the sea. The boy said, oh Allah, save me from them by anything you wish. So the boat capsized, and all of them fell off the boat except the boy. The boy came back walking to the king. What did you do to your companions? The boy replied, Allah saved me from them. And he further said to the king, you cannot kill me until you do what I command. The king said, what is it that you command? The boy said, gather all the people and fasten me over the trunk of a tree, and then take an arrow from my quiver and fix it in the bow and say, in the name of Allah, and shoot the arrow. If you do this in the name of Allah, then only that will be the only way you will be able to kill me. The king gathered, and he did exactly this. He gathered all the people together. He took a bow. He shot in the name of Allah. He said, in the name of Allah. He shot from his quiver, and the arrow hit the temple of the boy, and the boy was killed. The boy died. People proclaimed, we believe in the Lord of the boy. We believe in the Lord of the boy. We believe in the Lord of the boy. The king came and said, it was said to him that is the thing which you were afraid of. By Allah, the thing which you are afraid of has actually befallen you. The people have believed in Allah. And then the story goes on, this inspiring story of a boy who believed in Allah, remained steadfast against the unbelieving king, and gave up his life for the sake of conveying the message of Tawheed to his people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept these words. May Allah keep us steadfast on our deen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Radio Al-Ansar. An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al-Ansar News.
Slightly gone past the hour of 2 this afternoon, the 18th of November. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. Conubia pupil is killed after being struck by a car, Ameri Kimonina. Local media says a 14-year-old schoolboy has died after being struck by a car near Conubia in the north of Durban. Emergency teams were drafted to the R102 earlier today. Local security personnel, Prem Baram, says paramedics found the boy with severe head and chest injuries. Baram says the pupil, grade 7 learner, was reportedly attempting to cross the R102 when he was knocked down. Report says he was declared dead at the scene. The South African Police Service investigations follow. More news now. Brown Mokoti appears today at the Madlanga inquiry. The Northwest businessman linked to alleged police corruption has been making headlines. In recent weeks, he claims he survived a shooting when gunmen fired multiple shots at his vehicle. The alleged political fixer has been mentioned several times as a key player in interference in criminal justice system. Report says he will testify over the next 2 days at the commission as the commission enters its phase of the next work. Mokoti alleges that he had interacted with the late and former police minister Natin Tetra, whom he said had indicated he would want to appear at the commission before his demise.
What did ex-minister Mthethwa say to you?
He did tell me that he was also going to come to the commission, and amongst other things, he was prepared to corroborate his suspicions also.
For the record, I can confirm that Minister Mthethwa at no stage communicated his intention to come to the commission. He made no contact with the commission, ever.
Yes, he did. He did tell me. He never said he made contact. He was just saying he'll be coming. He's prepared to come to the commission and give that.
Can you date when you spoke to him?
Come again, Commissioner?
Can you date when you spoke to him to report what had happened in Kenya?
Yeah, just after I came from Kenya, around the 14th, I think, 13th, 14th September.
And again, would that be reflected on your phone?
Yes, I believe so.
More news. The United States of America says today it has delivered a new treatment to prevent HIV in 2 African countries, months after President Trump abruptly cut global aid. The U.S. plans to expand the rollout of the drug lenacapavir by working with an international group. Peter Sands, executive director of an international group, Global Fund, says some 1,000 doses have been delivered in total to Eswatini and Zambia, and that will start to be administered this week. Jeremy Lewin, who coordinates aid at the State Department in America, says the United States government planned to finance 2 million doses of the drug to low or middle-income African countries. Lewin says that the initial goal will be to reach the targets by 2028, but that it could be met mid-2027. Lenacapavir is a new injectable HIV treatment that only needs to be taken twice a year. According to experts, it represents a major improvement over treatments requiring a daily pill. Finally, international story: a Palestinian prisoners advocacy group says jailed Hamas leader Abdullah Baghouti has faced extreme physical and psychological torture at the maximum prison in the Gilboa prison in the northern part of Israel, more than 2 decades since his abduction. International media announced in a statement earlier yesterday that a 53-year-old Baghouti is currently enduring conditions that have been described as a form of slow execution at one of the leading figures of the Palestinian captive movement. Concerns have been raised that his life could be at risk at any moment. The statement disclosed that the prison administration has been systematically and repeatedly targeting Baghouti with assaults for more than 25 months. Human rights organizations say that Israel continues to violate rights and freedoms granted to abductees as stipulated by the 4th Geneva Convention and international laws. The financial indicators ran to the dollar 17 rands 20 cents, the euro 11 rands, the euro 19 rands 93 cents, and the British pound is 22 rands 61 cents. In your weather, it's 24 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story: a 14-year-old schoolboy has died after being struck by a car near Columbia, north of Durban. That's the news. We cross over to Peter Maritzburg.
Making news on the 27th of Jumadil Ula, corresponding with the 18th of November on 105.6 FM in Peter Maritzburg. ANC appoints Sipho Makwaza to lead KwaZulu-Natal Electoral Committee, and Pietermaritzburg bail ruling expected soon to Bruce Motlongo's case. In local news, the ANC has appointed former MK operative and long-serving party activist Sipho Makwaza as the chairperson of its KwaZulu-Natal Electoral Committee ahead of next year's municipal elections. His appointment is seen as a strategic move to strengthen internal controls and improve candidate selection in a province where the party faces major electoral challenges. The ANC says it wants to be more disciplined and credible process as it prepares for a tough contest in 2026. Closing arguments in the bail hearing of Pietermaritzburg security boss Bruce Motlongo are expected this week. Motlongo is appearing in the Pietermaritzburg Magistrates Court in connection with double murders committed in Mbali in 2022. A ruling may be handed down within days depending on how the final arguments proceed. And in more news, a South African man living in Australia has had his visa revoked after he has been seen in neo-Nazi rally in Sydney. Matthew Gratta, who moved to Australia with his family in 2022, was filmed in an anti-Jewish protest outside the New South Wales Parliament. Authorities have withdrawn his visa following public outcry. Women for Change have distanced itself from the ANC Women's League ahead of the national shutdown planned for Friday, 21st November. The movement, supported by over 1 million petition signatures, is calling for gender-based violence to be declared a national disaster. The shutdown is expected to include women and the LGBTQ communities across the country. And finally, in international news, a lawyer for the U.S. Federal Reserve Governor, Lisa Cook, has defended her against allegations of mortgage fraud. The defense argues that the discrepancies in her loan documents were either accurate at the time or simple inadvertent notations, saying they do not amount to fraud. Cook is facing pressure after President Donald Trump moved to dismiss her over the issue. And now let's take a look at our Salah schedule for today, followed by our Islamic indicators and temperatures across the region. Zuhr Salah commences at 11:48, Asr Salah commences at 4:31, Maghrib Salah commences at 6:35, Isha Salah commences at 8:02. And now moving on to our Durban time, Zuhr Salah commences at 11:46, Asr Salah commences at 4:29, Maghrib Salah commences at 34, Isha Salah commences at 8:01. And now moving on to our Islamic indicators, Zakat Nisab is 17,880 Rand, Meher Fatimi is 44,684 Rand, and the minimum Meher is 885 Rand. And now taking a look at temperatures, Pietermaritzburg 13 to Bahav 28, Newcastle 10 to Bahav 26, and Escort 7 to Bahav 22. For Ansar News, this is Huda Ahmed.
Gift of the Needy team is working hands-on in Gaza to distribute aid in this time of crisis. Donate your zakat now to our brothers and sisters in Palestine who are in dire need. Standard Bank, Gift of the Needy account 272327654. Donate online on www.giftoftheneedy.com. Call us on 031-2713-102. Gift of the Needy, bringing ease to those in need.
The names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proudly brought to you by Turkiya, the Modest Boutique, 580 Ridge Road, Demure Couture for the discerning.
An-Nasir is the aider, the supporter, and the bringer of victory. And Allah says, Wallahu a'lamu bi'a'da'ikum, wa kafa billahi waliyan, wa kafa billahi nasira. Allah is most knowing of your enemies, and Allah is sufficient as a protector, and sufficient is Allah as a bringer of victory over enemies. There's an incredible equation that Allah presents in the Quran. If Allah were to support you, then there's none who can overpower you. And if He were to forsake you, then who will support you other than Him? And upon Allah, let the believers rely. That's the equation. If Allah is on your side, you win. And if Allah is not on your side, but the whole world is, you still lose. Secondly, the believers have a role to play. هُوَ الَّذِي أَيَّدَكَ بِنَصْرِهِ وَبِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It is He who supported you with His help and with the believers. So our role to make dua in every prayer for the people of Al-Aqsa. Raise your hands up. Number 2, spread awareness. And number 3, spend of your wealth. May Allah protect Al-Sheikh Jarrah, free Al-Aqsa, and free Palestine.
The names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proudly brought to you by Turkiya, the Modest Boutique, 580 Ridge Road, Demir for the discerning.
Turkiya brings to you the Modest Boutique, where elegance meets style and exclusivity meets you. Come in and view our personally handpicked range of exceptional quality garments for every occasion, from timeless classics to the latest trends in a range of fabrics to suit your taste. Abayas, top coats, dresses, scarves, and accessories. Let us bring out the diva in you. We offer you a truly relaxing shopping experience, secure on-site parking, open 7 days a week. Follow us on Instagram at Turkiya_Dublin or call 083-786-1065. Turkiya, Demure Couture for the discerning, 580 Ridge Road.
Are you ready for an unforgettable adventure in the heart of South Africa? Look no further than Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Introducing our exclusive South African special, a day visit for only 850 Rand per person, and children under 10 pay half price. Endure the ultimate safari experience with a 5-course meal, a thrilling game drive showcasing the Big Five, and a visit to our Predator Education and Rehabilitation Center. Plus, enjoy a hot snack and so much more. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to connect with nature and create lifelong memories. Book your day visit today by calling 081-434-8859. That's 081-434-8859. Kwantu Private Game Reserve, where the wild heart of South Africa beats. Book now and experience the adventure of a lifetime.
The views and opinions expressed by the presenters and guests of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
This is the weekly debriefing, where headlines meet hard truth. I am Muhammad Iyas Kareem, so join me every Tuesday at 2 p.m. on Radio Al Ansar for sharp analysis, global context, and local relevance. From geopolitics to breaking news back home, we'll bring in the journalists, the commentators, and stories behind the spin. Stay informed, stay ahead. The weekly debriefing, Tuesdays 2 to 3 p.m.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the weekly debrief. I'm Muhammad Iyas Kareem, and today we're dissecting the headlines to try and make sense of the story shaping South Africa and the wider world. Because this week just hasn't been busy, it's been quite volatile. From power plays at the United Nations to political earthquakes in Asia and a migration showdown between the UK and parts of Africa. The headlines, as always, are loud, contradictory, and spinning faster than most of us can follow. And I mean, that's exactly why I'm here, right? To try and slow it down, shift the facts from the fiction, and tell you about what exactly matters. And to help me do that, I'll be joined by somebody who knows the rhythm and the beat of breaking news better than most. Liaquat Tobias is a seasoned journalist and a long-time newsreader for Channel Islam and the host of Global Outlook. He's sharp, he's steady, and he's unafraid to call a story out for what it is. Liaquat will help us make sense of the biggest global shifts this week. And then later in the show, after the break, we'll go deeper into one of the most controversial stories of the week, the arrival of 150 Palestinians in South Africa under circumstances that are raising more questions than answers. No exit stamps, no private charters, and a whole lot more. We'll be joined by Ashraf Esrop, a specialist immigration lawyer who has been following the case closely. So let's get into it. We are going to shift our focus to some of the biggest stories shaking up the global order. Stories that speak to power and justice and the high stakes. First, we will be talking about the UN Security Council endorsement of the controversial Gaza peace framework. Secondly, a dramatic death sentence in Bangladesh. And thirdly, a hardline migration move by the United Kingdom, threatening visa bans in African countries. So, without further ado, let's welcome our guest. Assalamu alaikum, Liaquat, and Jazakallah so much for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Muhammad Iyas. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. You've really picked three of the most important topics that really are defining, as you say, the news for the week so far.
You know, it feels really intimidating being with you on air. Even though I've done this for a fair amount of time, you're probably one of the first people who I've ever met with in my journalistic career and endeavor, and you've always been such a sharp and bright shining light when it comes to news. So I'm really, really honored to have you on the show.
Jazakallah, brother. Muhammad Ayaz, I mean, it means a lot. I must be honest with you. Everything I did learn through the newsroom of Channel Islam International, and it's without a doubt a team effort that helps us, get our points of view.
I mean. So look, let's get into the story that's honestly frustrating me the most this morning. I think the UN Security Council, they just adopted a US draft resolution backed by Trump's 20-point peace plan, right? And this resolution is authorizing international stabilization forces and what they're calling a board of peace, which honestly to me is just such a oxymoron. And look, there's a lot of questions that are being raised, but let's start firstly. What legal authorities does the UN have really to deploy an international stabilization force into Gaza, especially considering Hamas's rejection of this disarmament?
I think this is where we're finding a major problem with the UN Security Council's own applications of the law, as well as just the United Nations General Assembly in particular. And let me just, take a step back and to explain this. We've come to the point where we have illegitimate members of the Security Council pushing forward resolutions that are being adopted that reshape the law to suit their needs. And why I say this is because the United States of America has been in flagrant disregard and breach of the rules and the orders given by the International Court of Justice when they gave an interim order to stop the genocide. In December, South Africa made an interim application. They continue to provide weapons for that. In terms of this, when a UN member state fails to act in terms of the UN resolutions and the UN Charter, there's something called Article 6. Article 6 is basically a mechanism that other members of the United Nations, the other countries of the world use, and by a majority vote, they then vote these individuals or these countries out of the UN. They suspend them, they penalize them, and they then restrict their rights and powers. So, had the United Nations been operating according to its own code of conduct and its own codex, we would have found that the United States would never have been in this position that it is, first and foremost. Secondly, we must also point out the hypocrites in the room. 13-0. 15-member council voted 13-0 in favor of the resolution. We were betrayed by Russia and China's abstentions, who have always pointed themselves out to be, on the side of Palestine and supporting the Palestinian cause. They did not use their veto power to block this measure, which is what the United States had consistently done over the past 2 years. And then coming to the question at hand that you've asked right now, the United Nations has the authority together with member states to then, order the deployment of a troop, a peacekeeping troop, not the kind of Board of Peace and International Stabilization Force we are seeing in Gaza. This is a very different thing, and it is completely distorting the articles that refer to peacekeeping forces in the United Nations. If you're thinking about that, you'd be thinking about the Lebanon border with Israel. You've never ever heard of this sort of arrangement being imposed. UNIFIL has been operating for many years trying to keep the peace. In fact, just a few days ago, Israel shot at UNIFIL positions in the south of Lebanon, and they caused quite a havoc there. So this plan is designed in effect to give Netanyahu the political victory that he could not achieve on the ground. First of all, the Board of Peace as a transitional authority is going to remove Hamas as the authority or the ruling powers or the ruling power of Gaza, which is something that they wanted to see. And also the International Stabilization Force, which will be headed by Donald Trump as well, by the way. And he said he's leaving everything else aside to head it. And Netanyahu was deeply grateful to him for making this a priority despite his busy agenda. It was quite insulting to listen to the two of them talking at the White House. This stabilization force will then basically is designed to completely obliterate whatever's left of the resistance by, most importantly, removing their tools of resistance, destroying the tunnels, which the Israelis, by the way, started doing last week once again, despite the fact that there are ceasefires, that there is a ceasefire in place, and then also by imposing an occupation on Gaza, which is what Israel wanted when they came into Gaza on the 8th of October 2023. So he's basically achieved these goals that Netanyahu will fail to achieve on the battlefield.
They're just doing it using bureaucratic speak, because look, I want to talk about this border peace. Firstly, the point that you mentioned about Article 6 is actually fascinating to me. I wasn't aware of that. And we constantly see this rhetoric with regards to the veto power of the UN, the permanent members. But nobody ever speaks about the invocation of Article 6. And it begs the question, clearly this is a known thing amongst all these powers around the world. So why has nobody acted on it, right? But look, this board of peace has been framed as this transitional governance body, and the question really is, who is this board going to answer to? Also, this just feels like colonization in another form, just redressed as international diplomacy. I mean,
absolutely.
What happens if the board of peace oversteps? Where's the accountability?
It's a private board, a transitional authority. It's all going to be done in terms of memorandum of understandings and agreements and frameworks that are binding in a civil court. And you know what they'll do? They'll draft these agreements and these policies in a way that gives them immunity. So they, plausible deniability is what they're going for. Yes,
An interesting point is also Erdogan has been very outspoken with regards to wanting to be involved with regards to the stabilization forces on the ground. And America has outright rejected their participation.
Absolutely. I think that when it comes to the American-Erdogan relation, American-Turkey relationship, it's a very dynamic and volatile. Because remember, the reason these two countries are in fact forced to be allies is they are both members of the NATO alliance. And in terms of that, they have to have each other's back. So I don't think that, and this basically goes more to Turkey's own desire to be European. This is something we always forget when we talk about Turkish politics. For a long time, Erdogan had his eye on the EU and seen himself as part of this bloc. He never identified as part of.
You feel like the sentiment is still the same? You feel like that shifted ever so slightly?
I think that in the end of the day, the sentiment may have shifted in terms of him needing to mobilize his people to continue voting for him. Because remember, he had strong opposition who came up against him, and he's also jailed some of his own, opposition politicians in his country when it comes to the local elections. So he is using Gaza, like we've seen politicians in South Africa use Gaza, pay lip service, and then do nothing when it comes to it. They've got such a massive fleet, Mohammed Ayaz Karim, and you're telling me they couldn't send one ship to help the flotilla, the Samud, even if not to defend the Palestinians, but just to escort the Samud to the shores. They couldn't send one of the 100 warships that they have in that bay. It's impossible for me to accept it. I don't believe for a second that anything he says, Erdogan, can be taken, for
face value.
Truth. Yeah, absolutely. Because his actions speak louder than words. This Trump,
the blatant hypocrisy have become something that we need to actually just start to recognize and accept as truth. I think it's very easy to hear what politicians say. I mean, for me personally, I roll my eyes every time one of them opens their mouths, right? It's become, I've become jaded. But I think at this point, it's no longer just applying to us as journalists. I think it applies to the masses. I think people are jaded by the rhetoric, and we are actually fed up of it.
It really does reflect in, the power that the voters are having and expressing in places like New York, where you see Mayor Mamdani getting elected as a leader. And it shows you that even in the height of center of capitalism, the capital of capitalism in Western society, they too are fed up of the BS that's coming out of the politicians. Because right now you are just wasting our air, and you are basically taking up our time by lying to us with obvious lies as well.
100%. So look, I wanted to talk about this narrative with regards to this pathway to statehood, but frankly, I feel like it's just a non-starter. So I'm not even going to give it any sort of airtime. I want to shift slightly. In this landmark verdict, Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal sentenced former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to